I've been picking up comics from this Whatnot seller for the last couple of months. Let's stop and go over the haul and see what keys I've picked up now. Welcome back, comic book fans. This is Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and in today's video, we're going to go over comics that I've been picking up from one dealer in particular from Whatnot. The dealer's name is Power Hockey Champs, and this is someone that I have spotlighted on the channel before in some of my comic book hauls, and I've gone back to him several times now in the last couple months, picking up more books. Some of these books that we're going to go over today are books that are just for fun. Some are going to be for speculation, just pure speculation. And the others are going to be for some of the ones off of that 2023 goals list that I set for myself at the beginning of the year. But before we get into the books today, what do I always ask you guys to do? Hit that like, slap the subscribe, and definitely hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on great episodes like this one each and every week, Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m. All right, guys, sit back. Let's enjoy this show, and I hope you enjoy these books. All right, everybody, I hope you're ready for this. We got a lot of books today. I have been picking up these books, like I said, from Power Hockey Champs off of Whatnot for the last several months. And I had ordered from them before, and I was pretty happy with the books that I got and the conditions. So I have been a frequent buyer of theirs on several different episodes. And I think out of this batch of books that I've got for us today, I think it's at least 3 different weeks over the last couple of months that I've went back to and bought some books. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through, we'll talk about the books. I'm not going to get into too much on speculation in terms of cost of, well, what a CGC would be worth if it was a 9.8. I do that on a lot of my videos, but we're not going to get into that today, other than I'm just going to talk about possible potential in some and talk about the condition and whether or not I was happy with the condition of the book I got from this seller. I like to do this a lot on Whatnot sellers because as best as they can describe a book on there, is it meeting expectations when you get the book? And I will say I've been times when I've been very pleased with the condition, and there's times when I think they've missed some things, whether they did it intentionally or not. It kind of begs the question, is buying off of the internet, and it's not even the internet, it's Whatnot, and it's a live video stream. You cannot examine that book. You can't take your time on screen like you can with eBay or even an auction like Heritage Auctions, where you can blow up the photos and take a really good look at the comic book. You're relying on a seller to give you his best assessment of a book and whether or not it's good or not. And in a lot of cases, I feel like you're buying off of the seller rather than buying off the book. And I'll say it's a mixed bag. I said even some of the best sellers I've got, and this is one of those. There's some books in here that I was definitely probably a little bit more disappointed in. But a lot of times I will chalk this up to me not paying as close attention to the Whatnot shows as I should. But it takes a lot of time to sit there and watch these shows. And you can definitely zero in on certain sellers. And I've done that with this seller. And I've been fairly happy with some of the stuff. But we'll go through this and we'll show you these things. And let's just get into it, or else I'm just going to ramble all day long. And again, some of these are books just for the PC. Some have potential to get graded and to be sold. Some of them have potential to be graded and kept in the collection. And some of them are definitely for that 2023 goals list. And we'll get into those as we go through this list. So let's just get into the first book here. And this right here was a Chip and Dale book from Dale Comics. This is from 1956. And I don't recall if he described it as a really good copy, because it's not. It is a very good copy and very rough, and it's definitely not something that's going to get graded. I think in the case, and if I recall, most of the books that I got, the price was really reasonable. And even for a reader, for an old Dale comic book like this, any of the Disney books I really like to pick up just to have in the PC. I think it's a cool aspect of collecting, going back into the 50s, into these Golden Age and early Silver Age books that aren't Marvel, aren't DC, and still have some really good condition. Now, this isn't one of those. The condition's not that good, but I'm going to sit back and open this up, and I will enjoy reading this at some point. Next book is one that I thought described was going to have some potential to be graded, and I've already got this in my collection. I've already got it graded. I've already got my 9.8 on it. but it doesn't mean that I won't look for certain books. If I've already got them in my collection like that, it doesn't mean I won't look for them again if I find them for a good deal. And this book, I don't remember the price I paid, but this book right here, graded 9.8s, can do really well. In fact, I was lucky to find one at a reasonable price. But any of Frank Miller's year one books, especially the first issue, 404, is really, really valuable. Not super valuable, you're not going to retire or anything, but this issue is funny. When I was looking for that, all of a sudden getting a 9.8 on issue 407 here was actually rather expensive. I mean, people were trying to ask for some serious money on this. And eventually I ended up finding one at a reasonable price. And one of the reasons I ended up buying it rather than getting it graded myself was I was struggling to get a really good copy of this graded out of my own collection, out of buying raws. Kept having little ticks. I was getting 9.6s, but I couldn't get that 9.8. And I finally got frustrated and I ended up buying this as a 9.8. And I don't think I mentioned it, but that was one of my goals for the year, was to collect the whole year one issues as 9.8s, issues 404 through 407 here. And I did that. I finished that. But again, I will go back and I will buy these at really good prices. And I thought this was going to be one that would be a candidate the way he described it on the channel. Turns out it's not going to hit that 9.8 unless I get a little bit of a gift grade if I ever send it in. There is a little tiny color breaking spine trick. It's very minute, but it is right there. So I don't think this is a book that will end up going into CGC in order to try to get a 9.8, but we were close. And I didn't pay a lot for this money. It was single digits. I want to say it was $7 or $8. It wasn't too expensive. All right, the next one here, and I remember this particular sale, and forgive me because these books are all mixed up now from this one seller. I don't know which particular night that I ended up buying each set of these. So they're all mixed together. So there's no particular order, but I do remember when he popped this book up there, it wasn't on my radar. But having seen a lot of Michael Turner covers on different books show up recently on Whatnot and YouTube, it's one of those things. I had never seen this cover before, and I said, wow, that's really nice. And I think I ended up getting it for about $10. And this is the variant cover to Supergirl #2. And I had never, as I said, I'd never seen it, but you can't go wrong with one of Michael Turner's characters that he drew so well. I mean, he didn't create this, of course, Supergirl, of course, but he definitely made this new version of Supergirl very popular when he was doing the covers to this back in the day. So I thought this was really neat. I don't know if there's a lot of value on that, but I thought that was a pretty cool pickup and a Michael Turner variant that I had not seen before. All right, another book just for fun, but again, some of these books have got some age on it, and they go back into the 70s, and if you could get super high grades on some of these, the potential is there for definitely some value, getting them graded, that is. But on the other hand, if they had some defects, it'd be fine, because it would be fun to have these in the PC and fun to read them too. And this is one of those. This is a square-bound book. This is What If Rick Jones had become the Hulk. This is a What If issue number 12 from, I want to say 1978. Am I wrong? I think it was December of 1978. And I had a lot of these issues when I was growing up, but I didn't have all of them, and this is one of the ones I'd never had. So I've never read this before. So I'm going to actually enjoy sitting down and reading this. And I'm pretty sure, if I'm not wrong, there may be some Sal Buscema artwork on there. Of course, he was famous for drawing just about every Marvel character at one point. I grew up on Sal Buscema drawing Avengers, Captain America. Trying to think what else. Defenders. Boy, it runs the gamut. And then eventually he was on the Hulk for a long time. And I think he ended up doing this, because I think he was doing the Incredible Hulk at the time, but I think he did this issue as well. So we'll find out what that is. I don't think this is going to be a super valuable book. The condition's really good, but I don't think it'll hit that 9.8, maybe not even a 9.6. But again, we're not worrying about the speculation on a lot of these. And this is one I picked up more for fun. Luckily, a lot of the prices I paid for these along the way were books I wouldn't mind paying those just for having good copies in my PC, not worrying about getting graded. Here's one that I took a chance on. This is Warlock #2. This is from 1972. And you've got a Gil Kane cover. I think John Buscema did the artwork in here. I've never read this. I never had any of the Warlock issues, the Power of Warlock issues. I might have had a couple of the Strange Tales, and I had some later issues of Warlock. And I think at that point, it was when Jim Starlin took over the book. I think I had some of those. But this book is actually in really good shape, and being from 1972, it wouldn't surprise me to have some value if you get it graded high enough. But again, fun book just to have in the PC. Now, this one, actually, we just talked about Jim Starlin. This is a book that is on my 2023 goals list, but I've already got it. I've already gotten this graded. This is Captain Marvel number 31. And it is part of that original Thanos storyline that ran in Captain Marvel from issues 26 through 33. And I don't think this is one of the, out of those, there's a couple that are actually pretty good key books. This is not one of those. But as I was saying, this is part of that goals list. And the goal for this series was to get every one of those graded by CGC and just have it in the PC. And I wasn't too much worried about how high the grade was. I just didn't want to go down too low. So getting these all in 9.0 and above is sort of the goal on this, just to have a really nice set to have in the PC. And I don't know, have you guys ever read the Thanos storyline? I think I eventually went back and bought the trade paperback that reprinted all of these. I think it reprinted issues from Marvel Feature, I think at least number 11. I think that's right. Is it 11 or 12? No, it's 12, where it had Iron Man and the Thing taking on the Blood Brothers, and Thanos was in that issue, another early issue. I'm not sure what other issues from the early Jim Starlin Thanos run there was, but that was a nice trade paperback I picked up at one point. So it was nice to have that to be able to read all these issues. But this was on the goals list, and when it came up, I felt like the price wasn't that expensive, so I went ahead and just picked up another copy of that. At some point, we'll get that into the shop, and we'll see if we can get a good grade on that down the line at some point. All right, now, I don't pick up inexpensive copies of Spawn #1 by Todd McFarlane. I've got a 9.6 signed by him from his signing from last year. I've got a signed copy of this that I got probably 8 to 10 years ago when he was at the Baltimore Comic-Con, somewhere in the house. I have no idea where it is right now. I had pulled that out with the thought to send that in the CGC at some point, but as of the current moment, I have no idea where that book is. We'll find it eventually, and we'll get that in the CGC, but I couldn't pass up this. This was, again, I think $7 or $8, and sometimes for a really good copies of this, you'd pay a little bit more, but this is a copy. It does have a nice little spine tick over here. I thought it, when he was describing it, was much better than what it was, but it's still a really good copy. And I'm getting nitpicky when I say, I mean, we're talking the difference between a 9.8 and a 9.6 on some of these. But when you're shooting for 9.8s, any imperfection like that will hurt you. So anyway, good to have that, another raw copy in the collection on that. All right, now I did pick up, this is also part of that Batman Year One series. This is issue 406, I believe. Yeah, 406. And I do have this, like I said earlier on the Batman Year Ones, I do have this as a 9.8, but this copy right here, again, was really inexpensive, and I didn't want to pass it up. And the description that he gave on that channel was it was a really minty condition, and I'm going, okay, for how little it was selling for, I'll pick up another copy of that and hold on to it, and we'll get that graded at some point. This is a really nice copy, and that's what we'll do. We'll hold on to it. We'll get it into the shop. We'll have it ready to go at some point down the line. Now, this was a freebie on one of his shows, and it was one of those, I think what the way he was doing it was you could do whatever the giveaway was. I think he had a batch of comics, like let's say 5 comics or 4 comics or something like that, and he would pick 2 winners. And the first winner got to pick, he could do this. He could pick any one book or defer and let the second person pick one book, and then he would end up with all the rest of the books. Or if he took the first book, then the second winner would get all the other books. So if I remember right, I'm not sure which way it was, but I ended up being able to, I think I was the second winner, and I got to choose which book that I want. And I ended up picking this one right here. This is issue 143 of Avengers. It is an early George Perez book with the Avengers, and Marv Wolfman is actually the writer on this. And it is a final issue of a Kang storyline. So you had a really good book right here. I think you got a Gil Kane cover, and it's in really nice shape. So I was really happy to get this. I think I made a good choice, but I can't tell you what the other issues that he had on that sale, but I didn't have a choice at that point. As being the second winner, I just got to pick one of the books, and the first winner got to take all the other ones. And I think I ended up with one of the better books, to be honest with you. All right, now this one I had hoped was in a little bit better shape, but it's still good to have in the PC. This is issue 500 of Action Comics, and you got this beautiful Supergirl, Superman cover right there. It's absolutely gorgeous. And this is a book I wouldn't mind getting graded. And I'm thinking a lot of this, these are like, the money I'm paying is sort of like buying lottery tickets. If the condition turns out to be really good, better than you expected, you got a potential high dollar value return if you get it graded and get that high grade. But if you don't, you end up with just a pretty decent book that's going to be in your PC. And that's what this is. It's going to end up in the PC. It's going to stay raw. In fact, I'll read all of these that I don't end up getting graded, I'm sure. But this is really nice, just not grade worthy. So anyway, when did this come out? This came out, I think, in September of '79. And I just wish this book had been a better condition. And it's funny, I've seen this book pop up now at a couple of different shows since I picked this up. And then this one has been sitting here for a while. In this order, it's probably been at least a month and a half, and I've been to at least 2 small shows since then. And I've seen this book at multiple places now, and I knew I had it sitting there. I just wish I'd paid attention to the condition, and then I maybe picked up a better copy. But regardless. All right, now this is a book that was described really well, and it turns out it is a very nice book. It's not a key, but it's an older book. And in this condition, if you can get a really good high grade, you can actually do pretty good at CGC. This is New Gods number 8 by Jack Kirby, of course. And it ends up, I don't think there's anything special in this book, but this book is from April 1972, and the condition is really good. It will take some cleaning, some dry cleaning mostly. I mean, it'll still need a press. Don't get me wrong, but there's no spine ticks over here. And what you have is maybe a little bit of a dirty spine. Now, of course, we'll have to get the books out completely and double check everything. Page counts, loose staples, any damage or any kind of dirt that you might find on the back. There's all kinds of things that could still go wrong, but the potential in this book right now is still really good. So this is a book that will go into that possibly getting graded category. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. All right, continuing on here. Book that is definitely in my PC, but I couldn't pass it up for as little as it cost. And I just love this. This book right here was part of that Mike Barr, Alan Davis run on Detective Comics. And I loved the Mike Barr stories at the time, but I loved the Alan Davis artwork just as much. And I don't know what it was about this cover, but I always love that. You've got the Joker, you've got Catwoman, and if I remember right, this is where, at that time, I think she ended up getting brainwashed by Joker, but at the time, she was really coming onto Batman's side, and you start to see more of a team up between them, and then she gets brainwashed and then turns on Batman. But you got some great artwork, and this is a book that, when I think of Alan Davis, I think of The Nail, the Justice League Elseworlds stories. I think of Excalibur. But I also think of this. And what's funny is, in particular, this issue right here was classic Alan Davis. And yeah, we're going to save this. I think he's going to be at Baltimore Comic-Con. Now, I had gotten him to sign my X-Men 213 when I was at Heroes Con back in June. And that was the only thing I brought with me at the time. But when I picked this up, I've got this in mind. I may take this to Baltimore. I think he's going to be there. I have to double check on that. But I will save this. I may possibly get him to get this one signed eventually. All right, now here is another old Avengers book, and this takes me right back to my childhood, right when I was like 5 and 6 years old, going to the drugstore with my mom, and I'd pick up comics, and I remember this cover. Avengers issues in the 120s were some of my favorite issues because they were my first Avengers books. I had started getting Avengers with, I think, I want to say issue 111. And I was right there when they introduced Mantis and they brought the Swordsman back into the Avengers, and you've got the whole storyline with Mantis throughout all these issues and leading up to 29 and the King Size Annual where they do more stuff with her and everything. But this was definitely right after that great Kang issue. You had this issue here, and this cover was one of my favorite covers of all time. This, I think, am I wrong? Is this a Gil Kane cover? I believe it is. But you had some of the most powerful Iron Man villains, and they had a Thor villain, and you had them teaming up with this other guy. And I do not, can you see him there? Really, let me take this. I do not remember what his name is, but he had this diamond outfit. I think it was a diamond outfit with these sharp edges. And he turned out, and it's funny, he turns out to be just a common thug. Yet he teams up with these dynamos, the Crimson Dynamo, the Radioactive Man, the Titanium Man. I mean, these are true powerhouses in Marvel Comics. And they kind of get a little pissed off at the end when it turns out he's just a common criminal. But what a great cover. I'm just kind of surprised. Have you ever seen this cover homage somewhere? This seems like a blueprint for any comic out there to be homaged. You see covers all the time that have classic battle scenes. In fact, there's Avenger, is it 53 where you have the X-Men and the Avengers attacking each other, and you see people do a rendition or homage to that cover all the time. I've never seen them do this cover exactly kind of like this. So let me know, have you ever seen a cover homage to this one right here? This is Avengers 130. I don't know. I'm kind of curious because this one, as a former artist, graphic artist now, this one always piqued my interest back here when I was a kid, wanting to draw. I knew I would draw. I would take tracing paper over this and I'd redraw it and things like that. But yeah, let me know if you've seen any covers out there that have homaged on this. All right, now this next book goes back to the 2023 goals list and falls right in line with that, with the potential. My goal is to get every John Byrne X-Men book from issues 108 up to 143 graded 9.6 or above. And I've already got this graded 9.6, but again, here's another case where I'm picking up a book that I think at a really reasonable price and has the potential to be graded at a 9.6 or possibly even a 9.8. And that falls right into that. And if I get another one graded like that, that's fine. I actually probably will. I think this one's actually a newsstand where the other one's a direct. But that's a case where I can obviously sell one of them, keep one of them type of thing. But I felt like the price on this was really good. And again, it fell into that goals list type of thing. This one right here, I don't think I ever had this. And I can't say that I was a big fan of it on MTV, but this is issue number 1 of Beavis and Butthead. And honestly, I only picked this up because a lot of these 80s and 90s licensed properties type of books have been really coming to the forefront lately. And I'd never had this. This is an issue 1. I picked it up for that reason. Actually, it's in really nice shape. I don't know if there's a lot of value in it. I'm sure there is. At least probably $100 to $150, 9.8. I don't know. Possibly. This book is definitely one that I've actually gotten graded out of my PC. I got a 9.6 on it. I sold it for a really good price. I remember selling it, or actually when I got it graded, I remember getting really disappointed that the thing didn't hit a 9.8, but because it's actually pretty valuable. In fact, right now, a 9.8 on this right here, fair market value is $480. I think that's even way higher than it was when I sold my 9.6. And I can't imagine I sold that 9.6 for more than $125, to be honest. And that's still really good. So I didn't mind picking this one up for a pretty inexpensive price. You've got this classic Spawn. Why do I do that? Spawn. You got Venom with doing the Hamlet thing with Spider-Man's skull, and it's all by Eric Larson. Just this, I think this is about the time when you introduced the giant tongue from Venom. I think that was when that kind of happened. But anyway, great cover. This one has some potential. I want to say I saw a minor defect somewhere there. I don't think it'll hit that 9.8, but even a 9.6, like I said, has some value. All right. All right, we're closing in on the last few books, and this one here, as I said, I bought from this seller over the course of several auctions, and I ended up buying the same book for him multiple times, and it is this right here. I bought 2 copies of Avengers number 200. And if you guys don't know, this is a pretty controversial book where most of the creators that worked on this have apologized over time. You've got this storyline where Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel at the time, becomes pregnant, and she gives birth to a young baby boy named Marcus, who over the course of 2 days grows up to a full-grown man who, I want to say, it's Immortus. I think he's Immortus, right? And he ends up sexually assaulting her, and I don't know. It was pretty convoluted. I never got that. She kind of went away with him on her own free will, it seemed like at the time, but it was still really weird. Basically, he's his own father, and it's really disturbing, and, one of those things where you're not really comfortable with it. I mean, as a kid, when I was reading this back in 1980, I just thought it was pretty confusing. I didn't catch the sexual assault against your will type of thing as much as I would today. But in today's society, these things are much more prevalent. And this is a story that probably would not have happened in today's comics, other than from somebody doing an indie book that was trying to be controversial. I don't think they were necessarily trying to be controversial. I just think they did a story, and in today's light, you look back on this stuff and it's like it's pretty cringeworthy, actually. But on the other hand, you've also got some great George Perez artwork right here as well. So anniversary issue 200, I picked up a couple copies of that. One of them's a little bit better than the other, but both of them are in pretty good shape. The one that's in lesser condition actually just looks like it needs to be cleaned. But it's a square bound book, so that's going to cause a few more challenges. But both of them, as I said, are in still really good shape. I do not know what the value is on that. That could be interesting. All right, now here's a book that I've gotten graded multiple times, and I have sold it at least once. I know I've got one in my PC right over there that I'm going to hang on to. It is Infinity Gauntlet number 1. And this right here is where the movie came from. This is the Infinity Gauntlet and the stones, and you've got this wonderful George Perez cover, and he did the interiors, I think, on the first one. I'm not so sure about the other issues. I think he did the covers on some of the other ones, but he didn't do all the art. But on this first one, you've got this George Perez cover. You got, of course, this is Jim Starlin writing all this. And what a great book. This is one of those books that I wish back in the day that I had taken to get George Perez to sign when he was still with us. Jim Starlin, of course, is still here. But it's one of those that, I don't know. It's one of those ones that makes me want to go out there and try to find a George Perez signed copy of this. Now, one of my best friends that I used to work with, he has a 9.8 grade of this signed by Perez and Starlin and Stan Lee. And it's definitely a prize in his collection. And always a little jealous of that. And I would love to get that. If I could find a raw copy of this, or even a graded copy with George Perez, I might be interested in picking that up someday because, well, you're not going to get Stan Lee again, but you could always get Jim Starlin. So that's kind of my point. I don't think you're going to, I don't know. It'd be kind of difficult to see if I can find a Stan Lee, any of those signed Stan Lee or George Perez on this at this point. I don't know. Well, we'll take a look. That might be a challenge I might have to take up. But really good issue. And, of course, the big origin of the story that we saw in the MCU. All right, last few books. This one right here is Man-Thing number 5. And it's not a key. It is just a fantastic story. Got Mike Ploog artwork. This is the original Man-Thing solo series in his own book. And I remember I never had this book. In fact, I'd never seen it in person, but I'd had this book, kind of. Back in 74, maybe a little bit before, they had put out, I don't think it was Marvel, but it was definitely licensed from Marvel. And I'm not sure what the company was. But just like the Golden Records reprints from the late 60s, these were reprints of certain Marvel books, and I think there were some other lines of books they had too. I seem to recall there was a Star Trek book. This book was reprinted as part of this record collection. It was a record and book set, and I had that. I had a bunch of these. I had a Fantastic Four. I think they reprinted issue, I want to say 125 or 126, that retold the origin of the Fantastic Four. There was the reprint of Captain America 168 with the origin or the first appearance of Phoenix, who turned out to be the son of the original Baron Zemo. And it was really cool to sit there and listen to the story being told on this record and follow along in the comic book. And I just remember seeing this, and this was a creepy story. You've got this clown. I want to say he ends up committing suicide, and his ghost comes back. It was really creepy. And of course, Mike Plug artwork at the time, just absolutely stunning, scary type stuff. He had that Bernie Wrightson kind of quality about his horror comics. And when I saw this on Power Hockey Champs channel and it was in really good shape, I said, I just want it. I want this book. And I'm sitting here looking at it and I'm going, this is a really surprisingly good shape from a book from 1974. In fact, this was, let me see, when was this? March of 1974. You know, I was not even, let's see, what was I? Yeah, I would have been 6 years old reading this at that time. Good times, though. Good times. And it's funny, the memories that these books bring back, I think a lot of us, we remember the joy we had of these things as we were kids. That's why we love these things. Now, I'm sure a lot of us love this and the money that we can make by selling some of these, getting some of these graded, getting better books into our PC and things like that. But the joy that a lot of these brings just takes us back to that original moment as our child when we were reading these things. And that's what this does for me. All right, last two books. And this one right here is definitely part of the goals list that I talked about a little bit earlier as part of that X-Men run. But unlike the X-Men 143, where I've already got it as a 9.6 in my PC, this one I do not. This one is issue number 11. You've got, I think this is when the first time that the X-Men face off against Arcade. And I think you've got who is it? You've got Dave Cochran cover. I'm sorry, I was blanking for a second. But it is John Byrne artwork on the inside. And I never had this issue when I was growing up, but I think I've got, in fact, I actually do. I do have a graded copy of this, but it's a 9.2 or a 9.0. And I bought that as a filler a couple years ago or last year. And it's one of those things. It was a mistake to buy a lesser book at the time. I just felt like I got caught up in that moment on an auction and I'm like, let's just get this. It'll be a placeholder. I'll replace it eventually. I should have just waited until I bought a 9.6 or found a really good raw copy. And I'm telling you, this is a really good raw copy of this right here. Sharp corners, no spine ticks. So this is a book that will go to the head of the pack on books that I'm sending in to get graded over the last few months of the year. Look forward to getting this. I have high hopes for this to get this into my PC. I mean, there's a lot of books that I get graded that I say I want for my PC, and that's true. I do want them for my PC, but I don't have as an emotional attachment to hold on to some things as long as others. But this X-Men John Byrne run is something I want to hold on to. That is, in fact, if I ever showed you the list that I made for myself for this year, it's the number one item on that list. And doing pretty good on it, but it's a fun little challenge, and this makes it really helps you focus when you go to a show and you're trying to decide what you're going to buy, to help you focus on certain things, not just buy, and you're broke real quick. This way it slows down before you become broke, I guess. Anyway, last book was not on the list, but in a way it is, because I kind of added this goal late in the year in 2023. In fact, I started this back in June, and it's one of those things where it's not that DC wasn't on the list, but I realized that there are certain books that I kind of want to have on the PC, and I've talked about this before. I've been picking up some of these Justice League of America books good, really good condition Silver Age books where they cross over and have ties with the JSA. And in a lot of cases, it is the first appearance of a lot of these characters from the Golden Age, the first time in the Silver Age. And you've seen in the last few episodes since, well, actually since Heroes Con, where I've been picking up some of the early Crisis books in Justice League of America. I've picked up a Flash book where you have the Golden Age Flash. I picked up some different showcases where you've had the first appearance of some different villains and everything. And this is no exception. This is actually one of the bigger books in that goal. It is showcase number 60. And this is the first appearance of the Spectre in the Silver Age. And what's funny is this book, I've seen this book for years. You go into all kinds of other channels and you will see that this is a prime book to get. This is a book people want in their PC. And I wanted this. I wanted to have some of those early JSA, early appearances in the Silver Age in my PC. And this is definitely a very desirable key comic book. And I just thought it was a couple years older, but it's actually 1966. And it's in really good shape. And in fact, that's probably the most expensive book I've got in this whole collection. And all the books I bought, this is definitely, like I said, the most expensive, but I think I had at least 3 or 4 different orders over the last few months from the seller. And this is one of the ones that kind of got me really going back to them, because when I got this book in, I was really happy with the condition. We'll get that into the shop at some point and we'll get this graded. But in the meantime, it is a nice keeper comic book for the PC. So that's it for the comics that I picked up from Power Hockey Champs. Overall, I'm really happy with the books I picked up. Generally, the conditions on most of these have met or exceeded my expectations. There's only been a couple cases where I was really disappointed. But to be fair, I think a lot of these, I don't pay attention close enough sometimes when I'm watching these shows. I'll be someplace and being a little bit distracted. It is hard to sit down and just watch the show without having any distractions around you. And a lot of these, as I said, the cost wasn't too much, so I didn't mind picking them up, even if some of these are just readers. But in a lot of cases, they're really going to be really valuable if I can get those high grades after getting them into the shop and the press and sending them off to CGC. But guys, let me know what you think of the books today by leaving me a comment in the comment section below. And if you guys are ever interested in any of the books that I show on the channel, just reach out to me at collectorauctions@yahoo.com or DM me on Instagram. Or if you just want to see what I have for sale right now, definitely check out my eBay store or my Shortbox page. Both of those links are in the description on this show right below. But that's it. And before I sign out today, I wanted to remind you guys that I'm going to be at the Baltimore Comic Con this year. I'll be running around, and if I run into you guys, I definitely want you to stop by and say hi. I think that'd be pretty cool, and I hope to see you there. But that's it, guys. Enjoy the rest of the day. I had fun today. I hope you guys enjoyed all of this. And please join me for Friday's show. I think we're going to end up doing some more key comics that I picked up from Whatnot. I'm not sure yet. It's going to be Whatnot or Heritage Auction. Seems like that's where most of my books are coming from these days, except for a few visits to certain LCSs. But we'll figure out. It'll definitely be another key comic episode for sure. But until then, guys, remember, every comic has a story.